people were trained over a week to lucid dream, really intensive lucid dream training. And after a month, 80% of the participants stopped expressing signs of PTSD, of this post-traumatic.
Wow.
I mean, that's unreal. So people are really paying attention now to how powerful this practice is.
But that's better numbers than any medication, isn't it? Out there, 80% less PTSD symptoms or experiencing even PTSD just through this training alone. No psychedelics, no allopathic medicine, no psychotherapy, 80% less. That's insane. I mean, it's actually completely unheard of.
So, and it's just that process of it where there's a traumatic event, we often become fragmented. We push it away, we push it down. And through lucid dreaming, we can meet these parts of ourselves in a very safe way.
Alrighty. Good evening, Jamesy. Good evening to Peru. Good to see you, mate.
Good morning, Dorje. To Vietnam, is that right?
Thailand, in fact. Same time zone, but Thailand. Yeah. So, sorry for being a little late this morning. We had yesterday evening a beautiful full moon ceremony here on Koh Phangan with singing circle, cacao ceremony at the fire, and my friend and I were invited to do some intro with qigong and breathwork, and then it turned on a longer and longer night. And then eventually we came home quite late, and he had to leave. I'm staying with him at the moment. He had to leave this morning at 5 a.m. or so to catch a ferry because his visa ran out, and he had to leave the country for a second. And so, it was a rather short night. And then I found out in my room, it's too early, it's too dark. Actually, I need to change rooms. And now I'm here, fully lightened up. But now on your end, it's getting dark.
Yeah, well, after hearing that story, it's a real honor that you have me on your podcast at this fine early hour of the morning. So thank you.
Jamesy, it's my great honor and pleasure to have you here. It's also by popular demand, I would say. Some of the people that know both of us were like, "When will you interview James? We want James." And I thought I always wanted to interview you anyways, or just not interview, but have a conversation with you. But since we are pretty much 12 hours apart, last time we had a little funky mix-up. I mean, we know we're 12 hours apart, but when you set the date on the wrong day, it turns out I'm already the next day, and you're still the day before, right? That's where we had our calendar mix-up last time, which was quite funny.
We made it. It feels like so much has happened just to
oh my goodness.
And it just so happens it's on the full moon eclipse. How about that?
How about that? No better timing, I guess, to speak to a wizard like you than on a full moon eclipse shortly after spring equinox. Powerful. You being in Peru, Sacred Valley, is that right?
Yeah, I'm tucked into the mountains here in the Sacred Valley of Peru.
Wow, amazing. Me sitting on Koh Phangan, the Crystal Island. So it's a good steady connection here from one end of the world to the other. Yeah, man. Jamesy, really good to see you. I've been wanting to have you here for a while. Just as a quick intro for the people who don't know you, we two met in San Marcos in Guatemala once, and I joined one of your workshops there on lucid dreaming, got quite interested in it, and joined one of your lucid dreaming classes later online also that you host, and you came in for our circle, also hosted a couple of workshops. So I'm really excited to see what you're about these days and what's alive for you. Like, what are you up to, man? How are you doing these days?
Well, life is beautiful. We've just begun the process of dreaming with some beautiful land. We have the honor of stewarding, and so we're really dreaming with the space and drawing beautiful pictures and designing our home. And yeah, and in time we hope to create a sacred space there, a retreat space for people to
Oh
go
my God.
deeper, to connect with nature, to connect with their hearts, and yeah, to remember their true nature. So it's very
Yes.
exciting times here in Peru. Guy and my wife and I are holding retreats here, um, very intimate retreats for just up to 4 people, which we love to do.
Ooh.
We work with
Wow.
Washuma medicine. It's better known as San Pedro. Uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, and I continue to teach the course that you joined, the Lucid Dream course online. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and currently I'm actually teaching something else. It's like a journey of uh, the great work, the inner alchemy. So it's like taking what a lot of the students have learned from the lucid dreaming course and then going much deeper into the awakening journey.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, you told me about that one, and I was a little gutted that I couldn't take part this time. But being on the other side of the world, it's a little complicated for me. But I will hop on the next opportunity with you for sure. Yeah, and you mentioned Huachuma also for the people who may not have heard about Huachuma or San Pedro. It's not super popular here in Europe, I would say. Can you perhaps explain in a few words what that medicine is and how you came to work with it, what it does?
Yeah, well, um, my wife, Gaia, has spent many years in the jungle here in Peru, um,
Hmm.
and has a very much a shamanic path. And um, so her medicine over these years of working with many, many different plants um, really became about Washuma. Washuma is a cactus and it grows in the mountains here. So it's very, very much at home in these mountains. And yeah, it's not so well known. It's, lots of people have heard of ayahuasca. Um,
Yeah.
and it's a very different type of medicine. It's a medicine that often the way that we work with it is in the daytime, and it's very much akin with nature. And it's a very gentle, caring, loving medicine that if you imagine like the divine intelligence of where it brings you to your heart. And so often, rather than coming out with a big philosophical, like this is my purpose, what it does is it shifts the place in which you come from. It makes it a lot easier to come from your heart space, to come out of the mind and recognize the mind as, as a tool rather than the boss, and really to let the heart lead the way. So yeah,
Beautiful.
it's a beautiful medicine that we love to work with here, and Gaia and I, we have lots of complementary ways that we work. I work for healing modality called vortex healing, and
Hmm.
you see a lot of people coming to Peru and taking sitting with medicine, and I feel like there's a big part that's missing for a lot of people, and that's the integration. So
Oh,
we
yes.
have a big
Yes.
focus on, okay, so you've really realized this. So how is that going to weave its way into your life? How are you going to integrate
Hmm.
that? And
Hmm.
I think that that's the real work. That's
Hmm.
that's the really
Absolutely
important bit.
agree.
I mean, it might be same
Yeah.
with lucid dreaming. You can have these experiences, but the most important thing is how does that affect how you treat yourself, how you treat other people, and how you open to
Yes.
life.
Yes.
Mm.
Oh, that's very beautiful, Jamesy. Um, Maybe to add to that, I think this integration work is missing a lot in psychedelic work, and just to as an add-on for those who have never heard of Wachuma, perhaps not even ayahuasca. I doubt that anyone hasn't heard of it, but most people, or some people, haven't. So it's a psychedelic plant, or a cactus, as you said, which the indigenous peoples have used for eons, under guidance, not to party, but to do deep inner healing and medicine work, right? I think in tribal societies, when people took those kind of medicines, the integration happened by itself because you were sitting in a tribe, right? So you don't go elsewhere, you stay with the people, you can talk about it the next day, the next weeks, the next months. Hey, how am I feeling? What's going on? But in our day and age, people go somewhere for a ceremony, take a psychedelic plant medicine, for example, and then fly off to the next thing, go back to work, and then this connection is missing. And then we have a little, or not a little, maybe even a very big experience, but then what to do with it, right? So that's why the integration is so key, so crucial. So I'm very grateful that you guys do this beautiful way of working with it. And one more thing came to my mind with regard. Oh, sorry, please go ahead.
No,
I have a little lag here due to time zones. Okay. One more thing that came to my mind with regards to Wachuma was that somebody told me, was in Guatemala, I think in Guatemala I was told, Wachuma is the indigenous name, right? And then the Spanish name is San Pedro. I think the Spaniards, when they came, they forbid all these kind of indigenous plant medicines and rituals and said, it's demonic, you have to be Catholic now, and we don't want you to do this. We don't want you guys to have direct access to the divine. We want you to go through the church so we can have power over you. And Wachuma was forbidden, but then they called it San Pedro. And San Pedro in German, it's Petrus. It's the guy who opens the gates to heaven, right? So they took a biblical name to explain that and said, we're just praying to San Pedro. It's a very smart way of telling the Spanish, look, we're actually doing Christian work here. We're connecting with heaven. It just came to my mind.
See that. You can see that the world over, can't you? And it's very, in terms of conversion that happened with many of the festivities, the celebrations, the medicines, and that's what you shared there. I feel is so important, and what I feel is the most important thing on a spiritual path is direct experience. It's, there are so many spiritual concepts and philosophies, and now even memes. And what's most important is, what is your experience?
Yes, I agree. I'm a little guilty myself. I used to get lost a little bit in philosophies because I was so interested in it when I started on my own journey of self-exploration, let's call it that way. So you start to dig here and there, different traditions and this philosophy, and what does that mean? And then there are lots of concepts, but these concepts were never made to explain the path to you. They were just meant to elucidate what you were actually experiencing as you progress on the path, right? But without direct experience, the concepts are useless. It may sound nice, but you don't understand. You really cannot put it to work for yourself unless you truly experience it. And then the philosophy makes so much sense. I mean, then looking at ancient texts and scriptures becomes so beautiful because oh wow, this is just absolute truth that has been spoken here, right? And this is the beautiful thing. So no, it's very important to have your boots on the ground, I guess, as they say sometimes, like to be in it and do it. Yeah, amazing. I would love to come to Peru and join you guys there on your beautiful new land and the dreams you're weaving. It sounds absolutely spectacular.
Well, the door is wide open, Dorje, and the kettle's on. So you just let us know when you want.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Jamesy. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were in the Lucid Dreaming course, I had this one dream of me visiting you in Peru. I think I told you, and you were like, "Oh, thanks for visiting, mate." That was your WhatsApp message, because what I saw, I think I saw your neighbor's plot of land or something, right? As I was describing the scene to you, you were like, yeah, that's pretty much how it looks here. But it's more like my neighbor's land. Yeah, very funny. So I think it's in the field already. It's a matter of time. And yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting concept that you've touched on actually. Lots of people think that lucid dreaming is just something that happens within your mind, um, but it is possible to meet an actual person who's also traveling in their dreams as well. And so,
Yes.
for me, that I just find that's so fascinating. And the first time I had experiences of of meeting somebody and it being validated by the other person who was also in the dream,
Yeah.
it really speaks to, so what does that mean? And it really began to open out that practice of something that was so much more than I even imagined, you know. Um, it's For me, in terms of that direct experience, like we were saying, I think dreaming is just such an amazing portal for that because we all dream. All of us go to sleep and we all dream each night, and lucid dreaming is available for everybody. It's not, it's not just for Tibetan Buddhists or Kabbalistic adepts, initiates, or shamans. It's something that we can all do, and it's such a beautiful portal to get to know ourselves. I mean, and I think that's along that journey, that's the first sort of bus stop, if you like, is we get to know all of the parts of our own subconscious and some of the parts that maybe we've hidden from ourselves. And I think, especially when you go into a spiritual path, read the philosophy, sometimes people want to bypass that part, like what are the parts that hurt? What are the parts that I'm ashamed of or scared of? And, our
Yeah.
dreams are just like this natural, they're sort of guiding us to become whole, to not shun them into like a little box somewhere, but to really make friends with ourselves, even our awkward bits.
Yeah. I remember this very clearly in the course when you were like, you gave us it's 7:07 here in Thailand now, just noticing. You gave us this homework because many people in the lucid dreaming course or before the lucid dreaming course said, but I don't really remember my dreams. I know I dream every once in a while, but mostly I don't remember. Also, I used to not really remember lots of dreams. You said first homework is get a dream journal in the morning, first thing in the morning, write down whatever you remember. And you said, and don't be shy, even the awkward stuff, the naughty stuff, the brutal stuff, whatever you remember, write it down. It's all parts of you, right? Yeah, and I remember that some people are like, oh, I don't want to write this down, but it's like so revealing of what's going on inside of us, deep inside of us, right?
Yeah. And that's why it's a good idea to make your dream diary private. So then you feel comfortable
Not on your
to,
Google Drive.
share.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then, because what you're doing, the whole process, if you consider your conscious mind, like kind of what we're using right now to communicate, you use this side of your mind, the masculine side, to hold space for that feminine unconscious. And it's like what happens by just creating a dream diary and paying attention to your dreams, it's like the feminine part of yourself goes, wow, somebody's listening, like I feel heard. And so it's like this like huge, it's like this process of really making friends, the masculine and the feminine. And so then instead of them, almost keeping secrets from each other, there's like
Yeah.
a movement to wholeness and then working together. And then through that listening, and really you got to listen to the awkward bits first before you get to hear perhaps some more of the profound insights, the intuition. But I feel like that's the door you need to open first, and then so much more is revealed in terms of guidance Like, what is it that your soul is yearning for?
Hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, I definitely have my fair share of very weird dreams in my dream journal, but then afterwards, sometimes very deep and insightful stuff comes. Um, we jumped right into the topic, also because you and I have spoken about lucid dreaming quite a bit. But maybe for beginners, what is the term lucid dreaming? Why are you so engaged with it that you started to teach it? What is that, or what's also the potential in learning how to lucid dream? If you could explain that maybe for a bit for the audience, that would be lovely.
Sure. Well, dreaming in itself offers a lot of insight, whether you're lucid or not, just by paying attention. Often you're given really juicy golden threads that you can follow for your life. And yeah, some of them just seem completely bonkers, that's for sure. Um,
Yeah.
and it is a way for us to make sense of the world. If you imagine like lots of cogs coming in and out, and then in terms of making synapses and making and then even projections of the world, it's our dreams that actually are doing so much of that. Of like, oh, so this is the way the world is. So even without being lucid, dreams are amazing for what they're doing for us, and science is really beginning to understand just how important dreams are for our well-being, for understanding our world, for creating memories, um, and for healing, for emotional healing. So there's a lot of work around that now in science. Lucid dreaming is when you're within a dream and you're like, oh, I'm dreaming. And you know that you're dreaming. And so this is
Yeah.
often like a part that happens for people because it's so exciting. It's just like you go, oh, I'm dreaming, and then you can snap out of it, or you wake up and but even that is such a euphoric experience. It can be very healing in and of itself, just to like to realize you're dreaming. And through cultivation, through paying attention, through training, you can extend that. And and then within the dream where you have agency, you have choice, you can begin asking deeper questions. I mean, there's a
Wow.
whole world of lucid dreamers that are just like, this is 10 million times better than Netflix. And you can control
That's
your
quite a
dreams,
statement.
and this isn't,
Good.
you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I agree. It's like that is true, but that's not the real magic of lucid dreaming. The magic of lucid dreaming is the potential to heal wounds and to awaken to who you truly are. It's when you begin to go into those realms, you're exploring consciousness for yourself.
Right.
And
Right.
and then through that, uh, I can't really speak to any limitations. So the possibilities are endless. For me, it's gifted me so much in my life in terms of what direction to take, and that includes, my wife. Um, I mean, I've spoken to you about this before, but in my dreams, I
Please
knew
tell
that
that
she was
story.
my
Yeah.
beloved, but like 4 years before it happened in real life. And the
Wow.
biggest projects of my life have been sort of guided to me in that way as well. So, I mean, and there's a spectrum to lucidity. Beyond lucidity, there is astral travel as well. So that's where you can really explore and meet guides, meet teachers. Um, there are also astral universities that you can attend to study. Um, and so it really opens up some doorways that, where otherwise you just get snoozing. It gives you a real opportunity where, a third of your life you're asleep. If you begin to uh, engage in that practice, then I mean, it's just very efficient in terms of your own evolution.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 This is something that is so wow. to me, like astral universities and meeting teachers and all these kind of things. I'm still working on getting to that stage eventually with a lot of patience. But it's beautiful. And some of the stories you told us, and also that some other participants of your courses explained, like shared what kind of experiences they had. It's absolutely fascinating. And you also mentioned that this knowledge or these techniques, this technology, we could probably even say, of becoming aware and conscious within your dreams, it's also nothing new, even though modern science is starting to catch up and starting to understand the possibilities and potentialities for healing. But I mean, many ancient traditions and very high civilizations used to employ these dream work, right? Like, for example, the Aborigines in Australia, they speak of the great dream time, and you taught us about roots in ancient Egypt and how the Greeks would look at it, and indigenous traditions and Tibetan dream yoga and so on. Like, what was your entry gate into this? And you seem to have studied many different traditions. And as a matter of fact, I know you have studied different traditions, but perhaps you can speak to that a little bit, just to explain that this is not like one person came up with this crazy idea and some people tried it as well, but like many people for ages, eons probably, have explored this, right?
Yeah, but and that's just because it's natural, it's just a natural process. And so it's obvious that people around the world have just, some people have had the curiosity to take it deeper. Yeah, I mean, it fascinates me that, from ancient Greece, if you look at it from the dream temples there, that actually, if you follow it all the way back, that's what created modern day medicine, were the dream temples. And so people would go there often with mental health challenges, sometimes physical challenges, and these places were just like holistic healing centers, breath work, art therapy, cold plunges. They were often near beautiful nature. And then when they were ready, they would have a dream that invited them into the temple for healing as well. And we're seeing this, with what we're seeing right now, is that happening. You know yourself in terms of holistic modalities and just how deep the healing and transformation is through breath work, through cold plunging. All of these methods are really, you can see them resurfacing. And it's the same with lucid dreaming. There's a lot of study now on healing PTSD. So that's the most recent studies that you're seeing across the world. And
Post-traumatic
it's
stress disorder,
unbelievable.
just to throw it in for non-English natives, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Like people coming home from war, for example, war veterans having all these issues, or also people going through traumatic events and having this resurfacing all the time. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you for the clarity. It's in that recent study, I think it was last year, people were trained over a week to lucid dream, really intensive lucid dream training, and after a month, 80% of the participants stopped expressing signs of PTSD, of this post-traumatic.
Wow.
I mean, that's unreal in terms of so people are really paying attention now to how powerful this practice is.
But that's better numbers than any medication, isn't it? Out there, 80% less PTSD symptoms or experiencing even PTSD just through this training alone. No psychedelics, no allopathic medicine, no psychotherapy, 80% less. That's insane. I mean, it's actually completely unheard of.
Yeah. So, and it's just that process of it where there's a traumatic event, we often become fragmented. We push it away, we push it down. And through lucid dreaming, we can meet these parts of ourselves in a very safe way. Sorry I think I went off on one, but you asked about the other traditions, particularly that I've worked with, and in terms of lucid dreaming. The most well-known is Tibetan Buddhism, really, for dream yoga. And I was blessed to have some fantastic teachers for about 4, maybe 5 years in Tibetan dream yoga.
Wow.
And yeah, and so a lot of my teachers there were just fantastic. They were like masters at finding a way for you to laugh at yourself. And and you know, there's a great motivation in Tibetan Buddhism to learn this practice, because in Tibetan Buddhism they say by learning to lucid dream you're preparing for your death.
Yes.
You know, there is a lot of studies from near-death experiences of that death experience. I've studied a lot through, you know, doctors' accounts of thousands of people that have died and then been brought back to life. And it follows so clearly, like what is spoken of in the Tibetan Book of the Dead about this dying process. But often it is quite dreamlike, the teachers say. So if you learn to become lucid, like I know I'm dreaming, you can learn when you've passed through the veil, when you die, to say I'm dead. And there's an amazing opportunity there to awaken. Lots of the people speak about who have had these near-death experiences, this clear light experience. And in Tibetan Buddhism, it's understood that if you can approach that with awareness, with emptiness, there's a high possibility for your enlightenment. So it's, you know, with that practice, it's great to have a good motivation for why you want to do it. And there's a pretty good motivation there from Tibetan Buddhism.
Absolutely.
I guess through my journey, though, I've always been interested in what is universal, you know, what between the wisdom traditions are they all saying the same thing?
Yes.
And that's what really excites me, because I want to see universal practices that anyone can study, where they don't need to call themselves a Buddhist or, you know, a Kabbalistic initiate. Just what's available to all of us, like meditation, like lucid dreaming. And so my curiosity led me onto this mystery school in Guatemala called Las Piramides. And I studied there for about 5 months, a little bit longer. And that's more Kabbalistic teachings around the tree of life, astrology, tarot, energy healing. And in your dreams, it's interesting because it was very different to my experiences with Tibetan Buddhism. This was very much more like an initiatory path. So it was almost like I was given lots of situations that I had the opportunity to initiate through, you know. So often it was a setup that was just like tickle my ego in the dream, where I just wanted to be, you know, save everybody, be the ninja and save everybody there. But actually what my dream was asking me to do was come into a place of love. And it took me a very long time of, like, you know, really before I begin to realize this. You know, and it's the same with nightmares or anything like that, that actually your best weapon is not this like run away or attack, but actually if you are lucid and you come into a place of love and you know, regulate with your breath, come into a place of peace, the whole dream completely changes. And I find that fascinating, and it's, you know, as above, so below. So it becomes very obvious that although the whole scene doesn't change in your waking life, everything can change if you come into your heart and you come from that place. So yeah, that was where I was first introduced to this idea of astral universities. With Las Piramides, we would do meditation, yoga, but most of the teachings were happening every time we'd go to sleep. And we all slept in these pyramids, which were very, very conducive for lucid dreaming.
Mhm.
And a lot of that process, I actually, it's the same. It's like I started the spiritual journey really thinking, applying like what I'd been learned with school, with careers, everything else that I wanted to achieve something. I wanted to achieve enlightenment. and and it becomes quite obvious a little way in that actually it's not this winning game, it's a game of losing things that aren't true.
Mhm.
So letting go of
Mm.
conditioning, letting go of things that, just aren't necessarily true. So actually it's a losing game. And I think that I really began to realize that in this initiatory process. Um, yeah. And since then I've been studying with the vortex healing, and again there is a place that you can as for healing and for learning within the astral as well. Um,
Mhm.
Now that we live in Peru, I'm really really blessed uh, to work with a beautiful man, Don Fermin Quispe. Uh, he's from the Queros people. And so you spoke about as the Spanish came in to Peru and places like this, the Queros people were like, they went higher and higher up the mountain and they held the wisdom,
Oh,
as all of that was
wow.
going on. And
Mhm.
it's remarkable. The whole community are training in shamanism, ritual, healing, everybody that lives there.
Oh,
Imagine living in a
really?
community like
Not
that.
just one or two people in the village, like everyone, the entire community is training in these esoteric teachings. Wow.
Yeah, and so Gaia, my wife, and I are beginning this process of the Carpe initiations here with Fermin, and the whole process is dream based. It's like you receive an invitation
Wow.
to go for a vision quest up into the mountains. They're called the Apus here. The mountains are considered
Yeah.
the real teachers.
Hmm.
And so it's interesting. All of these different wisdom traditions all have a big reverence for dreams. It's like that's a
Yes.
way where you can begin to explore beyond the veil. Um, Even
Hmm.
now, there's so much more than just this physical happening as we speak,
Hmm.
but it's, we just have limited senses to really pick up on that. The
Hmm.
dreams, you can easily access what is beyond these senses.
Hmm. So you can in fact access other dimensions also, right? Because through our five senses, we are pretty much locked into this third dimension of physicality, duality, and separation, which is a one of many realities, I guess. And then there are many different ones. And as we dream, we start to leave the physical body behind and then go into other realms where other information is also accessible, right? This is extremely fascinating. I mean, this is obviously very, very interesting to everyone who is inclined to a spiritual path or esoteric teachings, or just general a journey of self-discovery. But as you also mentioned, lucid dreaming can also be used to simply heal, like post-traumatic stress disorder, for example. You told me that's still one of the reasons why I really want to learn it. You told me you can even practice martial arts and become better at it while you're dreaming. You can practice playing the piano. You can probably become a better musician, a better mathematician, a better human in general, because you can do stuff in your dreams, whatever you choose to do. Huh? Or you can also just explore higher modalities and dimensions of reality, which I guess our times are calling for in general, anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
wow,
just some
what a
beautiful
field.
examples there of just what's available, and one of the like golden tickets for anyone to lucid dream for themselves is to be passionate about something. And
Hmm.
so whatever you are passionate about, that is what
Hmm.
can really pull you through for lucid dreaming. Um, yeah,
Hmm.
there's the I don't know if you if I've spoken to you before about that very study on people practicing a particular kick in their dream, and they stopped practicing in the waking life. And again, like it was incredible to see how much everybody had improved this kick. They hadn't practiced once in waking life. So yeah, for martial arts, it's very much available. You know, if you think about like Neo's training in the Matrix, it's really speaking
Yes.
to them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that makes so much sense. I mean, top athletes work that way as well. I mean, be it a golfer or a basketball player, soccer player, martial artist, boxer, whatever. A very good athlete usually visualizes the movement that they have to do, and they see the goal that they want to achieve before it even happens through their body. It's already done within their visualization. So that's what people practice as well, physically, but also mentally, visually. And then you can extend that into your dreams, and it makes so much sense. Also, I heard that like many martial artists, they run their forms, their katas, like these sequences of movements. They rehearse them in their mind while resting and just going through these movements. And if you can do that in your sleep, even better. But I got sidetracked here a tiny bit just because I wanted to bring this application for everyone into the discussion. But I didn't want to divert from the fact that congratulations, Jamesy, that you guys are starting to walk on this path now with the Keros people. I mean, I think that's a very extremely precious and rare opportunity for modern people, especially also from the West, to have earned the trust of these indigenous wisdom keepers, and then seeing the signs also in your dreams in nature from the people. What does that mean? What can I imagine? What does that entail for you guys now? What kind of work do these people do?
It's so beautiful. You know, we're talking about some of the most, well, particularly for me, one of the most powerful healers I've met. And you know, I've met a lot of healers, and what I notice and some of what I receive in osmosis is that in terms of power, it's not like Famin is wielding his power. What you see is just how seamless Famin is with nature, and through his cultivation, with his relationship with the elements and with nature, it's like he's aligned with the wave of life force energy. And that just moves through him, through his prayers, through his healing work and his ceremonies. It's such a blessing to spend time with Famin and to learn from him, and a real honor to take these initiations. And it's unlike, you know, anything I've ever done. It's really a slow and tender and intimate journey of relaxing into the mountains and allowing the mountains to share their wisdom with you. It's and you know, it's like you would go up into the mountains with a vision quest and give offerings, often of coca leaves, and there's a whole process where actually it's not really working with plant medicines. It's working solely with the mountains, and you work with a meza. A meza, you have this beautiful cloth, and if you receive some insight or some healing in the mountain, then you would find a rock, often a rock that is like the same shape as the mountain, or one that really jumps out at you. And then you add this to your meza, and then over the years you collect these rocks, and they become part of your healing meza. And you know, I'm just so excited to begin this as a path. For me, it's just it just makes so much sense, and it's so much about direct experience. And you know, I've only just opened the door to this path, but those that have walked this path for a very long time, there are not many of them on the planet now. Now there is a lady called Maria, I think she's 96, and she's about
This
4 foot
this
high.
tiny Peruvian lady.
Uh-huh. Have you met her?
Yes, I haven't met her in person, but I've met the ladies from the Pacha Unai collective. I think they brought her to, if that's the same person, but very tiny, very, very powerful, very old. They brought her to Egypt, also to the Great Pyramids, and I've heard stories about her that when she prays and calls the condor comes.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm getting like goosebumps when I talk about it because like she's alive, she's here, and these stories are being told about her. Like that nature pretty much does what she prays for or asks for. Like so seamless, not in the sense commanding or anything, but more like listening and stuff happening then.
Yeah. And there is that dialogue, that relationship here, where deep into the
Yeah.
mountains, the weather can change. It could be very dramatic, hail even or something. And there is
Yeah.
that relationship where uh, I've seen it countless times where then we give an offering and you can have that communication with the weather systems. And you
Wow.
really see that with Fermin, with Maria, this
Hmm.
relationship. And it's beautiful to witness. Um,
Yes.
the, Maria is called an auto misok. Uh, it's like if it was karate, like the black belt. um,
Yeah.
and in order
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
in order to be for that to reach this level of initiation, you need to be struck by lightning 3 times.
Like physically.
Yeah.
Really? You have to be
So
struck by
yeah,
lightning.
if you yeah, so you met her. She is tiny in physicality, but she's got big
Yeah.
energy. She is like the
Wow.
mountain. It's incredible.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you get struck once and it kills you. This is how the initiation is to be struck twice, and it brings you back to life. And then the third one is to implant you with the wisdom.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It's like from straight out of the movies. But you know, James, when I talk to you, it's I like my inner child always is so happy to talk to you because um also my grown up self, but especially also my inner child. Because when I was a child, I was extremely interested in all sorts of magic and mystical stories and fantasy adventure stories. And I was playing all these games and reading all these books and seeing stuff in my head and talking to my invisible friends, I guess. And it was when I was a child, there was a world that was almost more important to me than like going to school or all those kind of things because that was a little boring. But then over the years, this got completely replaced by say real world stuff. And every time I talk to you and listen to your stories and the people you meet, I'm like, man, all this stuff seems to be real. Maybe not yet everything for me, but parts and bits and pieces, they're coming back. I'm like, wow, this is in fact magical. But you're like really one of these people who are really telling me, I feel like, without even telling me, that magic is completely real. Is that so?
I think yeah, that is beautiful that you speak to that innocence, that innocence and the imagination of childhood. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's such a sad part of that adulting process where we think that that's not
Yeah.
important anymore. Or we're sort of conditioned, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
and actually, it's like such an essential part of reality is
Hmm.
um, connecting beyond the veil. And, that is as simple as imagination, you know,
Hmm.
and I, I, I think it's sad that that's stamped out of us as we grow old. And as I look around, I like to look who's still got a twinkle in their eye, Who still believes? And I don't think it is a process of belief. It's just like I look around on, it's easy here, but there's a lot of reasons to experience awe in the mountains. But I think that's possible anywhere in the world, in nature, that it is magic, especially if you put that in relation to our cosmos. I mean, I think everyone would think that's just amazing if we found life on another planet, even a tree, let alone
Yeah.
another human like being. But we almost forget that it's so incredibly amazing that life exists as it does on this planet, and with
Yeah.
such stability as we whirl around space.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but I guess I never let go of that, and I had years at a time. Uh, I studied psychology at university, looking for like because that's not physical. I started to look into, so I was always curious. It's like all these adults seem to like think like what they think is true, but they lots of them think different things, and some of them are happier than others. So as a kid, I was like, that's important, follow that. Like you've got to cultivate a beautiful mind, and then the world becomes a beautiful place. And but psychology didn't satisfy it, didn't like quench my thirst. So that's why it was like, okay, well, let's go and explore, live with the monks. Let's really see where these wizard schools actually still exist. And I'm so grateful that
Wow.
I never let go of that.
Yeah.
And I've witnessed so much magic and healing, like really beautiful things, and it's available to all of us, of course. And the reason it tickles your heart, Dorje, is because you have never let that go either. You've held on to your dreams and you're following them in such a beautiful way. Um, yeah, I think you shared that you might be going to Japan. Is that right?
That is correct. In about 3 weeks' time, yes, in about 3 weeks' time, I'm following one of my childhood dreams. When I was a child, well, magic was the one big fascination for me. The second has always been martial arts and all types of, let's call it medieval warfare. I guess like knights and samurais and ninjas and Shaolin kung fu and all this stuff. I would watch every movie. I would stay up late. I would when my parents were not watching, I try to watch stuff like in secret because I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of television. I would sneak down and watch like these kind of movies. I would read all the books. I would go to the library and get me all the books with the images and just imagine I was living in those times. Because when I was a kid, I used to feel like I don't know, man, but I don't feel like I belong into this age, into this day and age, into this time. I feel like I'm from another time. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all this cars and airplanes, and I don't want this. It felt like very strange to me, and I would always like to go back into my fantasy worlds. Um, but yeah, coming back to that now, like Japan and samurai and ninjas has always been a huge thing for me. And yeah, it so happened a few years ago that I came across a real samurai, heard about him. Then again, last year I met him in Berlin, spoke to him. He came onto the podcast as well. I recorded an episode with him. We kept in touch. And at some point, he told me he was going to offer a samurai and ninja retreat in Japan because his family is like 16th generation in the Middle Ages, like that period that I was dreaming about when I was a kid. His family used to do that. So he grew up with this from a very young age. When he was a young boy, his father trained him, his grandfather, like, yeah. And now my childish heart is pop, 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 pop. Wow, amazing. I'm going to do that now. Finally. So it doesn't matter the time, doesn't matter the money, doesn't matter anything. I have to be there. That was completely, yeah, certain for me. And now I'm going. And so I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I really looking forward.
Well, I just have so much respect for you and the way that you follow your dreams. And as you spoke about your heart going pop, pop, pop. But all of my hairs are going up as you spoke about that. And, you know, I always dreamed of wizard school. You dreamed of samurai school, but I don't think they're so
Yeah.
different.
I think it all belongs together, Jamesy, for sure. And like when we think of samurai and ninjas, obviously the first connotation is okay, you want to kill people and slice people with your sword and stuff like that. And that's obviously or used to be a part of it in the physical reality, but I think there's so much more to it. At the end of the day, it's like living, moving Zen. It's meditation in the way you move. It's it's the sword. It's the way of the sword. It's also the way of the pencil, calligraphy. It's also the way of poetry, koan. It's also the way of dance. It's so much. It's a way of connecting to the elements, training with the elements, training earth, training water, fire, wind, space. Like even the entire retreat is built on those. And it's like really a way of connecting to oneself. And then most importantly, I guess, and I think this is where the loop closes a little bit. You spoke to dream yoga as a means to prepare yourself for dying. I think that this is what the spirit of the warrior, Bushido, the way of the warrior really is about, to understand and fully accept your own mortality, facing it, and then learning how to die in order to learn how to live. That's like what is behind it. And I think that blends so beautifully with so many ancient traditions and where all this comes back. It's just different ways of looking at it, at the same thing. I guess that's why we can potentially talk for hours also. Because, what you spoke about, the Keros people, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, ancient India, the Vedas, Tibetan Buddhism, ancient civilizations, aboriginals, native indigenous wisdom from the Americas, shamanism from Siberia, Shintoism from Japan, everything. All looking at the same thing, just from different angles and with their own distinct cultural flavor. Like my teacher in India once told me, actually, everyone is just cooking food and you need food to eat. But when you eat food in India, it will have the spice of curry. When you go to China, the spices will be slightly different. When you go to Morocco, the spices will be different. When you go to UK, the spices will be different. But everyone will eat to live. And that's how I see it these days. So it's really, thank you for seeing that. And I can only give that back to you, James. It's fantastic to see where you are going, and I'm really, really happy for you that you guys have this beautiful opportunity to train there. With the Keros people. How beautiful is life, man?
So
if you follow the science.
Yeah. So precious. And I think what you spoke to about our relationship with death can really bring more life to life, however you explore, just to admit to yourself that I'm definitely going to die. Just that alone, because I think a lot of us walk around like that's not going to happen. It's not something I'll ever think about. But if you explore that, and like you say, there's so many ways that we can die within a lifetime before we actually die in this incarnation. And and that's the classic the myth story of like then you can resurrect and with greater freedom, so much more freedom, and and some of the greatest civilizations I've ever explored and researched are ones that have a really good relationship with death. And that perhaps consider that maybe that's not the end of the road. And it's interesting because I recently shared with you about the dream where you were in my dream and we were walking across a beautiful mountain. It was a beautiful mountain ridge. I didn't know, but it could, I mean, I've never been to Japan, but it looked like if it was somewhere, it could be Japan. But I just love that, those analogies of, especially with the spices but just that everybody, these different wisdom traditions are all walking up a mountain in their own way, but eventually get to the same place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, it's the same mountain to climb for everyone. And now, probably what's also interesting to look at, you said it earlier also, that when you started to embark on your own path of self-discovery, spiritual path, you wanted to achieve enlightenment. But so that seems to have been, or maybe still is, a goal for you, or something to achieve, even though we start to understand there's nothing to achieve really, but rather to remove. Um, but in on these, there are different paths to enlightenment, obviously, right? So there's one very ancient way that is still available today, and probably most known in the West, is probably yoga. The entire idea is of union with the divine again. In China, also the Qigong Taiji path, reuniting with the supreme absolute. Hermetic wisdom, ultimately. So there are many ancient traditions. So it seems as if the forefathers, the ancestral civilizations, they all knew about these things. Somehow in our development, in our history, it seems to have gotten lost, especially for us in the West. And now the entire planet is pretty much influenced by the West, because we came with capitalism and industrial revolution and the internet, and everything has become like the West. So everyone starts to think and feel also like Western people, right? Even though the West has lost so much, even though science has brought so much progress on the technological external level, on the internal level, so much technology was lost. Also, in ancient Europe, there were traditions. You spoke of the ancient Greek people. I'm very sure that in the ancient Norse mythology of the northern peoples, the Scandinavians, the Germans, the indigenous people, the Celtic people of Central Europe and the British Isles, and like so much wisdom there. The Druids, the witches, the wizards, like so much was there, got lost. And now the question is, what like which traditions still have paths that are complete, that lead all the way up, or end somewhere because everyone who used to walk that path has died, and now people don't really have the full uninterrupted knowledge how to reach it. What from your perspective are like those that you've studied, the traditions that you've seen that seem to be the most complete and still uninterrupted ones, so people don't have to rediscover knowledge from books because their lineage was interrupted, but it's still like living traditions, masters teaching their disciples, and so on and so forth through the ages and centuries. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Such an interesting question. I think, first of all, I think it's important to say that even without following a lineage, I feel like there's a
Mm-hmm.
natural movement towards self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
awakening, and healing. If you just think of, if you cut your arm, the body is very intelligent the way that it begins to heal. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also the same for the mind, the emotional body, and this. I feel like there is this movement that's just supporting our evolution, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes can be just like a life event. Sometimes it's something really tragic. We begin to realize what's important in life. And
Yes.
I think it's important to share that first of all, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there are so many traditions that I feel like can take you all the way there.
Mm-hmm.
I have such reverence for the Buddhist tradition and the
Mm-hmm.
maps that are available through that path of
Mm-hmm.
meditation, um, and it's really very specific in terms of the
Yeah.
awakening journey, with samadhi, and
Mm-hmm.
the levels of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm deeply grateful for those teachings. Um, as I said, I worked with the Hermetic Kabbalistic mystery school, and I feel like
Yeah.
that was a path that remained intact throughout the West, actually, because that speaks
Mm-hmm.
more towards, like, you see a lot of the alchemists throughout history.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
sadly, um, a lot of it went underground, which is why they were called mystery schools, and it's
Right.
why the whole process of alchemy, it's spoken of as this chemical like laboratory experience, and even used minerals to describe the levels of consciousness, because it became much more underground. You know, I feel like there was a fear as different countries had their relationship and karma with power. Um, it become a bit of a threat for people to have their own direct experience, similar to what you shared about plant medicine earlier. And so a lot of it went underground but never disappeared throughout the West, you know, and these are paths that can take you all the way through to self-realization.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, I'm grateful
Eh,
for the lineage here that I work with, the Keros people, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful to be part of a culture that has this relationship with Mother Earth. It's, you know, in the East actually, it's very much
Mm. Yep.
vertical and like transcendent human experience, but here it's like this very feminine and this beautiful relationship with nature and Mother Earth. I think through all of them,
Hmm.
it's quite interesting, like where I look for the universal teachings. If you look in
Yeah.
most, and you mentioned it with the samurai path as well, but the understanding of the elements, you know,
Yes.
um, and what was interesting, if you look at the elements around the world, is, you know, we understand the four elements in the West very much so, you know, earth,
Hmm.
water, air, fire. But what you see in other traditions, more so in the East, is this ether, the five elements.
Yep.
And then it's very interesting because when you look in uh, how medicine came about, that missing ether element really impacted what happened. You know, we became reductionist and we looked for pharmaceuticals. We took out molecules to just work with one particular area of the system,
Yeah.
and we become reductionist. Just that we stopped looking at the whole picture, even the whole body, let alone the body, the emotions, the mind, and the spirit. And that you can
Hmm.
really see that just through that relationship with the elements. It just became very much
Hmm.
about this physical reductionism, and they forgot about
Yeah.
this like life force, like this natura
Hmm.
sophia, this
Hmm.
uh, light of nature that flows through all of life. And if you take that
Hmm.
piece out, you know, becomes very boring and very
Yeah.
reductionist,
Yeah.
and you're really missing a huge part of the picture.
Yes. Oh, I love that, James. I love that. I think that's also one reason why I feel very connected or very much at home with all sorts of Native American traditions. It feels like so at home in a certain way. Also, the chants, the songs, the ceremonies. It feels like, oh yeah. And I think it's really because Mother Earth is our home, right? Is even a living goddess that has birthed us and nourished us and allows us to live. And all the elements are here. And yes, the element of space is the one that is always present, but in the West we tend to exclude that a little bit. But yeah, this I really feel where you can what you're saying about the Keros people, and that this brings this yin energy of the earth so much into this teaching. And I agree. I mean, I come from a Buddhist family, so I grew up with Buddhism, and the first things I started to study was more the Eastern traditions. And yes, it's a lot of the mind and going upward vertically, as you mentioned. So it's a lot, okay, how can I transcend this earthly reality as quickly as possible and teleport out of all the suffering? That's how it felt to me when I was a child. I was like, but I actually like trees and oceans and bird songs, and why would I just want to run away from it? Doesn't make sense to me in that sense. Even though nowadays I understand way better what this idea of suffering eventually means, and that it's the nature of the mind that creates it. Um, but yeah, for me, that's also one reason why I'm so passionate nowadays about the path of qigong, like this Chinese system, because there's always this trinity in Qigong, and that's heaven, earth, and man. Man being human. So it's the yang energy from heaven, from up above, the ethereal realms. It's the yin energy from the earth, the mother, the groundedness, and then it's man in between that unites heaven and earth within his body. And that's also something that I really learned here training with the Shaolin Shifu that I was training here on Koh Phangan with for several weeks, where he said, okay, don't just fly out. Don't just be spacey. Have your feet on the ground and still feel the body. It's like about the embodiment of this spiritual awakening, not just running away and astral traveling elsewhere, but you're still here in this body. There's a reason why you have this body. Learn how to use it and make it a tool for this journey of awakening, right? And I feel like the native shamanistic traditions, they understood that in a very profound way, this connection to earth. But yeah, it's beautiful. Also, these elements, they come up in the Samkhya yoga and the Kriya yoga traditions a lot. And I started a practice also due to a very nice teacher here from the Himalayas. And she also said, okay, every day, just connect with the elements. And in Kriya yoga, it's also earth, water, fire, earth, and then, space, ether. All of them. And it's so simple, it's so profound. Because I really feel like this is especially what I've been missing when I was living back in Europe in the city. I did not have my connection to the elements, and that's why I felt disconnected. I was only in my head. But when you have the connection to the elements, you start to understand, wow, this body is earth. Yeah, it's matter. There's water in me, there's blood and sweat and tears in my body, there's fire, there's the organs working, there's heat in my body, there's air, I breathe it with every breath inhalation, there's space all around me, there's space within me. If there was no space within me, I would just be a tiny dot in without any 3D volume, right? So in order to create volume, there needs to be space. So that, there's space inside of me, space in my lungs, space in my guts, space in my everywhere, in my cells. Like, wow. And then I start to understand, wow, I'm actually, all of it, all of that is around me is within me. Like, what? And that is so simple and yet so profound. Yeah, it's amazing. It's just amazing.
It's so beautiful to hear you talk about it. It's I feel like that you spoke about the lineages and the paths. Wherever you are in the world, it's something you can cultivate. It's that relationship with the elements, and there's I don't think there's any end to it. I've been exploring it for years and years, and I enjoy it so much. It's why it's with the Lucid Dream course, it follows the elements throughout the whole journey. And every round that I teach, I go deeper as well as everybody that's in the course. So it's something I'm so passionate about because that's reality. I think it's easy within cities to just lose touch of what is real. You were bombarded with information and this is how to be a human, and it's really just by spending time in nature. I feel like you can learn all you need to learn in nature. Especially when you look as deeply as you have been.
I agree. I also remember we went in your Lucid Dream course, we would go through the elements. So there was a week of dreaming with the earth, and we had these exercises like finding a plant to work with, and then dreaming with the water and working with the water. And it's just all these practices that connect us to the elements. They're so beautiful because they're so profound. I feel like in the cities, as I mentioned, I was in my head. Why? Because life in cities is completely artificial, and we live completely within a social construct. That is so funny because we believe our regulations, our rules, and our laws, they are reality. They are almost set in stone. They are like concrete. We feel like boxed in by all these rules and regulations and laws, and they are necessary to a certain degree because we are billions of people on this planet, so we need to agree on certain things that we say, hey, this is rightful to do, this is not rightful to do. So we need it in a way because we're unenlightened. If we were enlightened, we wouldn't even need laws. We would just know from the inside what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing to do. Like just as native tribes, native societies, they know what's right and what's wrong without having to put it into law. But everyone knows it's not even subject to debate, right? Because we all feel it, whether it's something truthful or not truthful. And yeah, these social constructs, they are so interesting because this is really what keeps people trapped in their old self, in their old lives. Like just ideas. And these ideas become so concrete, we cannot leave them anymore. And then we're completely trapped, enslaved in the matrix, whatever we want to call it. But the elements, this is not man-made. This is the divine. It's just there. It's pure truth. There's nothing, no social construct on top of the elements. So it's just so basic, but so directly connecting us.
It's I really feel that. It's, and I understand that process of why, it's happened to all of us to a certain degree. It's because we have this desire to belong,
Yes.
It's a big reason why. And so that's how why conditioning works. It's just like you begin to edit yourself from a young age, so then you'll be accepted by the tribe, and maybe that goes into your ancestry because in terms of for your own survival, you really needed to belong to the tribe. And so you do whatever it is the teacher says, the parents, and often they're sort of, they're applauding you for this, or you get scolded for this, and so you just begin to reform and do what you're told, and you forget to listen to your own heart in that. And it's so true. Everybody's heart knows what's right and what's wrong. And what can happen though is you can wake up out of that, and you can begin to resonate with something deeper, like, what do I really want to belong to? If I can't be myself completely here, is that where I want to be? If I need to pretend to be somebody else in order to be friends with this person, do I want to be friends with this person? And then you can really consider, like, well, actually, I belong to Mother Earth, to these elements, to something even bigger. And then it's just in that. And it's not immediately, there's no light switch, but there's an opening to freedom, to a greater sense of being yourself, relaxing into yourself without having to prove anything, without having to pretend anymore. And that's a journey worth taking.
100%. Yeah, I guess that's a sentence I heard yesterday at the fire full moon cacao ceremony, where the lady who was leading the circle said so beautifully, we are built to survive. We are wired to survive, but not wired to thrive. So we need to learn to put this constant fight for survival behind us once we understand, hey, I'm not starving, I'm not in a war zone right now. Many people are. So for them, that's their immediate concern. True. But once we are past that, once we have a roof over our head, once we have food, once we have medication, once we have this Western lifestyle, we're decently safe. If we can allow us, and if we find the tools and technologies to come into our parasympathetic nervous system, really relax and get out of the constant fight or flight mode, then we can access states where we can start to thrive, right? And then if we can really relax, we can go into meditation, we can practice art, we can get ready for bed and for sleeping time and for dreams and for lucid dreaming and explore the wisdom teachings and the mystical reality of life. But yeah, we need to learn how to relax. That is so important, because when we're stressed out, when we're tense, when we're stressed, it doesn't work. We can tell you to connect to the elements. We can tell you to lucid dream. It's not going to happen when you're tensed, when you're constantly in fear, right? Yeah, that's why these technologies, all of them from all traditions, really center around like, okay, how can I relax a human being? And then from then on, there's an entire universe to explore.
Yeah, I'll say peace first and peace last.
Peace. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really,
Beautifully
there's
put.
nothing greater to walk towards than peace. And first, we must find methods and cultivate environments and lifestyles that promote peace within our nervous system, within our bodies, our minds, and then you know our societies, our communities, and
Yeah.
yeah, and just watch nature. It's so true. Like the survival, it just feels like there's, you know, the world tells you almost like there's not enough to go around. It really does. It really feels like that's true often, particularly if you live in cities and things. But, you know, in my garden right now, there's a pear tree, and I don't know how many hundreds of pears are on that tree. But, you
Wow.
know, the teachings are all there. It's just like that's the natural flow of abundance. There's a uh, continual creation of enough, more than enough. We can thrive if we just align with nature.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. James, we spoke a bit about the Keros tradition. We spoke a bit about the Eastern traditions, but you were also trained in, you said like Kabbalistic Hermetic teachings, but I know you're also studying wizardry in sense of, say, European ancient mystical traditions, right? Could you speak to that a little bit? Because when people ask me, who is this James that you talk about? I always tell them, well, he's my lucid dreaming teacher, but he's also my favorite wizard. Because you speak about magic so much. So perhaps can we touch on that a little bit? What is this stuff that you do there? And perhaps we can also go into vortex healing, what that modality is. Just a couple of things you mentioned today.
Yeah, well, for years now, about 17 years, I've explored different healing modalities from Reiki to Shahulaka, which was from the mystery school, breath work, many different energy healing modalities, as well as counseling and therapies in that way. And it was about 7 years ago. My dreams brought me back to the town that I grew up in, and it was a pretty rough town in England called Luton.
Yeah.
And and I was pretty reluctant after not living there for some years, but my dreams kept saying, go back to Luton and create these community gardens. And so I was living there for 3 years to create these vegetable gardens in the community. And it was there where I just kept, it's just like when you're open to synchronicity, and I kept hearing the name Merlin, and it just kept coming into my field in various ways until I was at a festival, and then I saw somebody offering vortex healing, the Merlin lineage, and so I thought I've got to explore this after everything that's been going on the last few weeks. So I went in there and a little bit skeptical. Just I've always been quite critical and assess like a bit like a scientist, like does this work? And so I spoke to the healer there. He was an amazing guy, and he said, anything you want to focus on? And I'd had a bad knee for, about, well, maybe 4 years. And I said, I've got a really bad knee. And other than that, I feel pretty good. And after the session, that was it. No more knee pain. And I was just like, wow. And so I just put that to bed for a little while, continued with the community gardens, and then it kept coming into my field again, Merlin. And so I explored it, had a look, I met somebody else, and somebody just said, you need to take this path. It's very familiar to your system. And so I thought, well, all right, I'll explore it. I'll see what it's about. And predominantly it's a healing modality. But it's unlike any healing modality I've explored. instead of using like energy, working just on chakras, it works with consciousness, divine consciousness. So more than just working with energy, it's very good at finding a place in your system where you feel separate, where you have strong conditioning or contraction in your mind, or you know, we all have different things we're working with in this life, and whether it's like self-worth, or whether it's like body image issues, or whether it's that we need this validation from the external. For me, I had like a real big issue with the masculine, and over 7 years, I've used this modality and dream work to begin to work through that. And I'm so grateful because it really makes, you know, like relationships like we have more possible. And it made it possible for me to seek out male mentors, and it's been a beautiful journey of me stepping into a position of even teaching. I realized this issue I had with masculinity was actually a fear of me stepping into any position of leadership, like a teacher,
Interesting.
or in any capacity like that. So it's very good at finding these issues, like my issue with masculinity, and then just gently unraveling them. And it's like it penetrates that issue wherever it's found in the system with truth. Like, and often it's very playful. It's like this magical transformation. It almost, it's like it has a good sense of humor. So it's hard to ever feel the same way anymore. It like helps you to go, well, obviously that's not true, because I was walking around going, this guy over here, he's so egotistical. Oh, look at this guy who's a leader. And I just had all these projections of like why they were assholes. and what happened in the healing process was like, oh, they can't all be assholes, James. And I began to laugh at my own process and just say, well, this is something to look at. And then I just couldn't see it the same way anymore. You know, it just,
Right.
you know, it becomes hilarious. So yeah, Vortex is Merlin lineage, and many people have heard of Merlin and Arthur, like the myths in England.
Yeah.
And so that Merlin was a part of this lineage. And if you imagine, like, a Merlin is somebody that embodies that lineage, almost like a black belt. It's a simple way of putting it. There's been several Merlins throughout the history of the planet. And the first Merlin was actually in India, was called Mahindra. And that was about 5,500
no way.
years ago. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And Merlin isn't necessarily like a person. Merlin's more like an expression of divinity. And like there's like Divine Mother, there's like Krishna, Christ, consciousness. Merlin is like magical transformation. So it speaks to like that sense of humor, and just really transmuting conditioning. So our programs,
that's powerful.
what we were told was true when we were kids, or even deeper than that, like what is deep within our ancestral lineage, or even like we've been carried through our soul's journey. And there's many patterns, you know, that we're working through, and this lineage is very good at identifying them and going deeper and finding the root. Like, where does that come from?
Powerful. Very, very beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I had the opportunity to experience vortex healings with you also during the lucid dreaming course. You offer also these vortex healing group sessions, but we also had a one-on-one session, which was very powerful and potent, even to the point that I felt stuff physically, even though I was in Germany, you were in Peru. I was just laying on a couch as we were having the session, and I felt stuff in my body, which was like, because I'm also a very critical thinker, very skeptical person. Also, I'm like, am I just making this up? Is this real? But yeah, it was pretty profound. So I definitely encourage everyone who's listening and watching to go check this out with James. A very beautiful modality. James, I was wondering, with all the work that you do, what is like your deepest wish? What is your dream, basically? What are you working on? What do you aspire to do or be here in this incarnation? I know it's a pretty big question, but
yeah. I love it when in a few weeks I'm going to turn 40 years old, and so it's wonderful to be asked. It's wonderful to be asked, when you grow up, James, what do you want to be?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So thank you for asking that, and I feel very, very content. Honestly, I love everything as it's unfolding in my life right now, and I continue the path with vortex healing. Like, I've been training for 7 years, and that it's a long path where you continue to go deeper into the wizardry path. I'm excited to learn more with Fermin and the Keras people.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't want to get the black belt. I don't feel I'm ready for the lightning.
Yeah.
And my greatest passion really is gardening. So we're so blessed in the back of this mountain in the valley here, where there's a waterfall. We have this land that we're stewarding, and I'm really, really excited to be planting trees, to listening to the land, and creating a sacred space for people to come and to go deeper.
So
I'm married last year, and I feel so blessed with my wife and our love, and I'm just really excited to see what it is that we create together.
That's so lovely. That's so lovely. I mean, I feel like, to me, you're the embodiment of Qigong, James, with your hands and feet so deeply in the earth, planting, gardening, working with the medicine from the earth, working with the shamans, but at the same time also being in your body, having a worldly life, being married, but then also transcending the merely physical plane, like astral traveling, astral university, wizarding around, magic on your path to enlightenment through dream yoga. Like, wow, what a fascinating path. Really, really love it. You spoke to me once. Sorry, please. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful path, but it's a very, very humbling one. I started off thinking I would become a superhero, enlightening people.
Like an Avenger.
Very humbling. Yeah, like going to wizard school, these ninja schools, and
yeah.
But actually, it's just a very, very humbling path where, I'm just grateful the moments I get to notice the beauty in nature.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I really do hope you make good progress on the Keros path without getting struck by lightning. If you don't, unless you want to, because you feel you're ready. But yeah, I believe, or that's also how it seems to be, that like, while we are here, so many people walk around and ask. It's also a big thing, I feel like, in the coaching, personality development business these days. What is my purpose? Find your purpose. Write it down. Blah, blah, blah. When the answer is actually not so complex, I feel. It's probably more like, just be who you are and bring yourself to fruition. Like, start to flourish and bring into life what you truly are and what you truly desire to be and to see. And I feel like you're so beautifully on this path with your passion and with your skills and all your soul. It's just amazing to see. And then I think when we start to go a little higher with our vibrations, start to heal, start to leave our wounds and our conditioning and our past traumas behind, and we walk a little closer, lining towards the light and going there, then at some point, yeah, it's humbling, because it's less and less of an ego game, right? But it's more and more about like just being of service, like wanting to help others explore the self, and experience the same level of peace and fulfillment and joy and love that is out there, that is the birthright of everyone, I would say. Yeah, yet it's so forgotten. So yeah, I'm deeply grateful for that our paths have crossed here, and that you're building this beautiful thing in Peru. And also, you mentioned you're starting to welcome people onto your land. Perhaps you can share a little bit about that. Also, you shared also this name Avalon with me. I still remember. So perhaps you can speak to that as we start slowly to come to a close.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Avalon is it's a beautiful place in nature. There's a beautiful waterfall. The other direction are the sacred mountains, Patusirai and Sawasirai. And parts of the year they're covered in snow. People know of Avalon like the mists of Avalon, and it really is a place to be grounded, to connect with the earth, but also to explore beyond the veil, to receive deep inspiration. So, yeah, it's in its early formation. We're really listening to the land of what wants to happen there, and it will be sometime, probably about at least 2 years, 3 years before we'll have created the sacred space there. But we do welcome people to our home here where we currently live, and we have very, very intimate retreats. So we hold space for 4 to 5 people, just
amazing.
as I said, so people can go very, very deep. It's very, very safe, and it's a real honor to hold that space for retreats here. We hold retreats for up to 8 days, and yeah, it's a real exploration of the elements, the sacred sites, the awe-inspiring mountains and rivers, and lots of time to get in the body with massage and going to the hot springs. It's just you basically create Gaia's and I's most favorite way to come home to ourselves, and offer that to other people here. So yeah, it's a real honor to hold that space, and I'm really excited to see how things grow with Avalon in time. And I'll just keep listening to how that wants to happen.
Yeah, beautiful. That sounds great. I'm excited to see it at one point. I feel like Peru is calling. Not sure yet when, but I'll make sure to pay you a visit for sure one day.
Yeah. Well, let's create something together. I would love that.
That'd be lovely. That'd be lovely. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, we've also already started to create a little bit like in the online field, to bring people more onto this, who are interested in this path that you're teaching, and all your wisdom and guidance in terms of lucid dreaming and how to become conscious and more lucid in your dreams, and explore this as a modality for healing a little bit. And in these workshops, you also shared like tons and tons, like really lots of concrete tools, how people can start to work with their dreams. Perhaps also, like here, a short question for those people who haven't been part of the workshops yet, but who may be interested also in taking your lucid dreaming courses, who go over a period of, I think, 2 or 3 months, something like that, right? Like, what would you say? What's the best way to start with lucid dreaming? Is there a practice people can pick up, like a concrete thing to do to get started on this path to magic?
Yeah, well, your greatest currency, your greatest wealth is your attention. It's what you pay attention to, where you place your energy. And, the moment you really have the desire and you begin to pay attention, your dreams will already begin to show you more. And it's the same with the waking life. Wherever you pay attention to, and it begins to reveal more to you. So become interested in it. Begin a dream diary. I would say this because I'm biased, but take the lucid dream course, because it's really helpful to have a group of people.
Yes,
We'll make friends with
agreed.
people and have a dream buddy, because we're here to lift each other up. And and we're not supposed to be walking this path alone.
Yeah.
And so it's beautiful to join other people that are passionate about these things. The reason I love to teach that is you don't need to go to Peru or to Japan or to Thailand. You can do it wherever you are, these practices, and I really like the idea of integrating them wherever you are in the world. And so that's why I love to teach that. It's people from all over the world, and we come together every Sunday and explore not just dreaming, but all of these shamanic practices that help us to be lucid, to be more alive, and to engage with life in a more fulfilling, fruitful way.
Beautiful. Yeah. I can totally wholeheartedly recommend your course if people are interested in this. I've participated even twice. And yeah, it's beautiful to do it in a group because you get to talk about it. It's interesting also. One thing that I noticed, obviously from my own path, I have friends who are very much like into all this spiritual lifestyle, spiritual bubble, self-development kind of thing. But also I still have friends that I went to school with back in the days, and they did not walk down this path because it's career and families and having built a house, and like they have their very worldly lifestyle, but yet also these people dream, right? And even when some of the things that I talk about seem to be a little bit out there, when we talk about dreams, it's like, oh yeah, like last week I had this crazy dream and I did this and that. And it's also a beautiful way of connecting with people, also with loved ones who may not be so open to this entire topic itself. It's beautiful to talk about it. And I figured doing that in a group was especially inspiring. And then also it makes so much sense if you want to learn anything to go with someone who is experienced in the field, right? Because you can read books, you can do YouTube and then just get lost in information, but having the guidance of someone who's really experienced in what they're doing is just absolutely priceless. That's why I would totally recommend to go with you, James. So if people want to learn more about you and your offerings, where can people find you? What's the best way to contact you guys?
Well, we have a website, awakenacademy.org. And you can find me on Instagram. It's James_flourish as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, we will put those into the show notes also for people so they can find you. On Awaken Academy, there are several offerings, obviously, your lucid dreaming guidance, your workshops and retreats that you do in Peru, but also your wife Gaia also has a couple of offerings, right? In fact, tonight in Thai time, I have a astro chart reading with Gaia, because I've been wanting to dive a little deeper also into astrology. When I was younger, I thought this is hocus pocus, but the more I'm growing and developing, I'm like, well, so many things make so much sense. So now it's time to dive a little bit deeper, so people can also find that on your website. Yeah, it's beautiful that you guys create together. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, Gaia is amazing as astrologer. She teaches people how also to become astrologers, as well as giving readings. And I'll give you a tip. A good way to approach that reading is show me what I'm working with in this lifetime. It really shows you some of the strong themes, and it's remarkable to explore that path.
Yeah, super excited. Yeah, can't wait. Wow. Yeah, that's been a very inspiring conversation, as always, with you, James. is there anything more that you feel you want to share or want to say to people? You feel complete? Anything else we forgot to talk about, perhaps?
I've really enjoyed our conversation. I love coming together and connecting with you. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, it's been a great honor and a great pleasure, as always, having you here. Looking forward to many more co-creations in the future, to meeting in real life once again, hopefully not too far in the future. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's getting late over there in Peru after a long day also. I know it's especially tough to do a podcast in the evening when you're already like, I've done my day's work, but still you're here sharing, offering is amazing. Thank you so much for your time, for your being, for your presence, James. And really look forward to everything that's coming in the future, and all the best for you and Gaia, obviously.
On to you. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.